Hello everyone, welcome to Flight Critical. Today we are going to talk about LOT Polish Airlines Flight 007. This is actually going to be a two-part video simply because the reasons and the aftermath of the crash is so extensive that it cannot be compiled in a single video. Very little is known about this crash. I could not find the official investigation report for the crash, so most of the information you will find in the video is taken from the Wikipedia article on the crash. LOT Polish Airlines is the flag carrier of Poland. During the 1970s and the 1980s, the carrier was operating many Russian-made planes. One of those aircrafts was the Ilyushin IL-62. The Ilyushin IL-62 was a 4-engine narrow-body jetliner capable of carrying almost 200 passengers. Notice the position of the engines at the rear of the aircraft. The engine position is going to play a very crucial role in the events that follow. LOT Polish Airlines had launched its transatlantic operations in the early 1970s, and for this very reason had purchased the IL-62. This particular aircraft, registered SPLAA, was manufactured in 1971 and was the first IL-62 purchased by LOT. It was named after a famous astronomer, Nicholas Copernicus. Flight 007 was a scheduled flight from New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport to Warsaw. On 13th of March 1980, the flight was supposed to leave New York at 1900 local time, but was delayed because of a heavy snowstorm. It finally departed at about 21:18 local time. As was the case with many Soviet-era airplanes, the flight crew consisted of 5 members, more than what we see today. There were 5 other flight attendants on board, along with 77 passengers, taking the total number of people on the flight to 87. The flight was uneventful until it reached Warsaw. It was 14th of March 1980. The crew was beginning the landing approach and were preparing their flight for landing. About 1 minute before landing, the crew reported to the ATC that the landing gear indicator light was not operating and that they wanted to go around to give the flight engineers some time to see if it was just a burnt out light or if there actually was a problem with the landing gear. This was not an unusual request by any means, and hence permission was granted and the crew began the go around. About 9 seconds after the final transmission from the aircraft, the plane suddenly entered a steep dive. At 11:14 local time, the aircraft clipped a tree with its right wing and impacted the ice-covered moat of a 19th century fort at a 20-degree nose-down angle, 950 meters away from the runway threshold. All 87 people on board the plane perished in the crash. During the final moments of the crash, the captain managed to avoid hitting a correctional facility for teenagers using nothing but the plane's ailerons, thereby reducing further damage and ground fatalities. The recovery of the aircraft pieces started soon. The FDR and the CVR was found quickly, but their recordings had stopped 9 seconds after the final transmission. During the recovery of the engines, engine number 2, or the inner left engine, was cut in half. On further inspection, the disc of the low-pressure turbine disc was found to be missing. The turbine disc was found about 4 kilometers from the crash site, broken in 3 similar-sized pieces. The turbine disc quickly became the center of the investigation. When the control pushers were also found to be cut in half, it was proven that the cut was not caused by the crash. The sequence of the events became quite clear. When Flight 007 began its go-around, thrust was applied on all 4 engines, which is the normal procedure for all go-arounds. With this increase in power, the low-pressure turbine disc of engine number 2 disintegrated. If you recall, the turbine disc had broken into 3 pieces. One piece got ejected upwards without any further damage. The second piece shot into engine number 1. This caused extensive damage to engine number 1. The third piece shot into the hull, severing the rudder and elevator cables, power cables for the FDR and the CVR, and also damaged engine number 3. When the control rods were cut, the horizontal stabilizer dropped down under its own weight, causing the nose to go down. This explained the steep dive during the final moments. This dive could be counteracted by vertical trim. In IL-62s, the switch setting the vertical trim to manual operation was secured by a thin, sharp wire. On the captain's right hand, small wounds were found which were confirmed to be made when the captain was alive, supposedly trying to rip the security off and control the vertical trim, but it was too late. The pilots of Flight 007 made every possible effort to save their plane, but the damage to critical control surfaces was so extensive that they could do nothing. The sequence of the crash was clear, but the important question still remained. Why did the turbine disk fail in the first place? During the course of the investigation, it was found that there were defects in the materials used, faults in the manufacturing process of Kuznetsov NK-8 engine shaft, and weaknesses were present in the design of its turbine disk. The defects in the manufacturing process is quite complicated, and I am not the best person to explain them. So I will suggest you guys to go to the Wikipedia to know those causes in exact detail. The main point is, the faults in the manufacturing process led to fatigue cracks in the turbine disk, and other impurities led to its acceleration. There is another factor to consider here. The NK-8 engines were not reliable in themselves. The service life of these engines were only 5,000 hours, but many of the engines would fail after 2,000 or 3,000 hours. For this very reason, the Polish pilots often called the IL-62 the flying coffins. If I was a passenger, I would not want the plane I was on to be nicknamed that. The particular engine that failed on Flight 007 was installed to another aircraft registered SP-LAC. After about 1700 hours, in 1975, the engine was sent to repairs to Soviet Union. After the repairs, the engine was installed on another IL-62 registered SP-LAB. After 5,000 hours of flying time, the engine vibration was detected to be above acceptable levels, and in 1978 was again removed for repairs. After the repairs, the engine was installed on SP-LAA, where it remained until the crash. Only 700 flight hours had passed since the last repair. Another important aspect of the crash was later explained by another Ilyushin-62 pilot. He explained that the planes returning to Warsaw from the US usually landed on runway course 150, and if they landed at or before noon on a sunny day, the sun would directly shine in the pilot's eyes. This sometimes caused disorientation to the pilots on whether an indicator light was lit or not. This meant that on 14th of March 1980, the landing gear indicator light might have been lit, but it would have been difficult for the pilots to see it properly. During the recovery of the wreckage, the landing gear was found to be properly extended and locked, which further supports this theory. The Special Disaster Commission sent the results of its findings to Moscow. In response to the findings, the Soviet engineers were of the view that the findings of the report were implausible and that the turbine disk had disintegrated because of the engine failure and was not the cause of the engine failure. Hence, nothing as such was done to improve the overall design of the engine. The flight crew of Flight 007 fought really hard till the very end to save their plane. The reluctance of the Soviet engineers to acknowledge the findings of the report led to another tragic crash of LOT Polish Airlines Flight 5055 under very similar circumstances, which will be covered in part 2 of this video. My thoughts and prayers go with the flight crew and passengers deceased in the crash of Flight 007. I hope you enjoyed the video. If yes, do leave a like and please subscribe if you would like to catch up with the following videos. Do let me know if you want any other accident to be covered. Thank you for watching. Take care and stay safe.